Although it's much better now this evening. So thankfully, everyone made it safely here. My name is Diane Gracia. I am the newest president for Native Plant Society San Antonio chapter. And let me go ahead and move on to the first slide. Um, so yes, as I was saying, I'm the newest president for Native Plant Society, and I'm very, very excited to be a part of this community. I love it. It's been a wonderful journey so far, and I'm expected to only get even better. Um, but I do follow in some really, really big footsteps. So Lee Marlowe, Lee, would you mind coming up here, please? So as you all know, Lee Marlowe has been the president for 5 years. Okay, I thought I was correct. 5 years. 5 years. She has led us with so much knowledge, expertise, grace. She's a details person, and she's also just a very kind person. I've learned so much from her, and I appreciate everything. I mean, just 10 minutes ago, she was telling me, giving me more words of wisdom. And we have a gift for her right here. Yeah. If you want to take that little bag right there, so you can enjoy that at the table or now or whatever. Yeah. So you're welcome. You want to open it up? Yeah. It's that. So that's just a little something because I know that you are a person who wears scarves.
I do.
Yes.
Thank you.
And it's a water theme. It's a ponds and ducks and has a little whatever that little thing to hold it. Yeah. And that one is it's bronze. So
Oh my God.
all theme, a water theme for you.
Oh, it's amazing. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, geez.
Please. I thank you, everybody. I was not expecting this. This is a surprise. I really enjoyed serving in this role, and this is such a great group of people. It's amazing to be a part of this community. I'm going to remain very active in the organization. I'm very happy for Diane. And just thank you so much. You all are just the greatest. So thank you.
Okay, well, moving on. Well, first of all, welcome to all our new members. Do we have any new members here or even in Zoom? Any new members? Raise your hand. Okay. How about yeah, where was that? Oh, right here. Well, welcome. New member. Yay. Katie, I think members, you had just done a count. Since our last meeting. Over 30 since our last meeting, and that's a total of like 450 members, about 450 members. Okay. So yeah, that's a big group of people. It's a big group of people to pull more volunteers from too. So please. So returning members, I see a lot of familiar faces. And do we have any just first-time visitors or just people kind of trying us out? Well, welcome. Thank you. Thanks for coming. And thank you, Zoom audience, for showing up too. I have here just a couple of pictures that I took of some of the things that I love. So just a little bit about me. Again, my name is Diane Gracia. If you thought I was saying Garcia in a weird way, it's not. It's Gracia. I have somehow meandered into Native Plant Society by way of being an English teacher for 30 years. I was an English teacher for 30 years. I retired about 4 years ago, and many a story was told in which I somehow would focus on the tree in the story. Students picked up on it right away. Like, Miss Gracia, do you have something for trees? Yes. I do. I have the thing for trees. And they, learned the game right away that if they could point out a tree or just make some kind of reference to the tree, then off we go on to, off of the lesson. So I had to, be really sharp from the beginning to the end because it could happen at any moment. But during COVID, during the shutdown, when I was having to have my students in my home, and it was a lot. I'm kind of I compartmentalized just a bit. It was a lot, and I found myself just really learning. I decided I was going to name all of the trees on our property. So I learned each one was, and we live on 5 acres, so there was a lot of trees. And then I moved on to grasses. And this was spring, so that was not easy because everything was just green, right? I learned my lesson. I had to wait until the fall to really identify those grasses. But I've learned a lot, and I've learned a lot because of people like Lee and Haley and everyone here that's been so helpful. And I love to learn, so I can get passionate about something very quick. And one of the other passions that I have is dog rescue. I've done a lot of fostering. I have a foster right now. So on the weekends, sometimes I'm at dog rescue events or adoption events, or I'm delivering dogs to the vet, for whatever rescue or just for my community. So I enjoy doing that. I am have two adult sons, been married for 35 years. Um, and one of my sons is a musician around town. He's very busy. And so when he's in town, we're following him here and there. And our older son just got married in March. So we're very close family, very busy family, and they love to help out and volunteer. And I expect them to be doing more for events that we're having. So I'm sure they'll be on board with it. So, but anyway, thank you for letting me be president this year, and I hope I can serve the role well. Mhm. Okay, well, getting back to some of the announcements for our chapter. Um, First slide again was Saw Spring Bloom, so don't forget about that one. It's very, very important. As many volunteers as we can get for that, would really appreciate it. And then also save the date. We have a tabling event, the HEB Native Plant Sale. The way it works is they give us a selection of dates and stores, and we select from the approved stores. And if they, I don't know what the algorithm is, but they figure it all out and they decide what our store and our dates, which are approved. So we will probably be putting something out in the newsletter. Ruby, who is Ruby? Can you raise your hand? This is Ruby Montalvo, everyone. Um, she's responsible for our very, very well done newsletter. So she'll be sending one out pretty soon, right? Yeah, yeah, thank you. Thank you. That is one way you can volunteer, right? So that's how she does it. And then we have, okay, again, more volunteers needed. Rainbow Gardens demo, the Rainbow Gardens demo garden. Has anyone been by to see it? Yes, pretty cool, right? It was amazing. And then if you go by recently, it's starting to die back. So we have a pruning day coming up. They have a neighborhood of, I forget what it's called. It's like a social day, society Saturday, and we're going to try and kind of clear the walkways a little bit of stuff that might be over hanging over into the walkways. So if you could join us, that would be really great. It is during the week. It will be on a Wednesday, the 18th of February. There is information there on the Scan Me. That's the sign up for the sign up genius for it. You can come for an hour, you can come for 2 hours, that's okay. Bring some pruning shears and some gloves and just bring you, and that's all. To the right of on the right of the screen is just a little picture of what we have already accumulated thus far by the second week of January, we had, this is only half of the list. There are at least 10 more lines that I didn't want to crowd the screen with. But this is taking us only through March. We have everything all the way through June also, and more things will be coming. So as you can see, the need for volunteers is big. We have so many events, and it's just great to meet new people. It's great to, become a community of people who are out there educating, experiencing, socializing, just and spreading the word about how wonderful it is to have native plants. So one more thing, in red, you see there it says needed volunteer coordinator and plant rescue committee. So it's just a reminder for me to let everyone know that Pam is our volunteer coordinator right now. Pam, can you raise your hand? If you're interested, she's the lady that you want to speak to. But Pam has been a very dedicated volunteer, organizing all of the events, signing up the volunteers, getting out their liability forms, and recruiting people. She is going to be needing a replacement in May around that time. So if you have a little bit of time to think about it, but if you're interested and you want to learn a little bit more about what she does, that's you can talk to Pam after this. So what happened here? There we go. One more announcement. This is the time to vote. If you haven't heard about this process where there is a vote for the pollinator plant of the year, it happens every year. I don't know how long it's been going on. Does anyone know how long it's been going on?
It's 2019. I think she started in 2019.
Okay, it's butterfly. Okay, so about 8 years or so. Butterfly, the Texas Butterfly Ranch, and I wrote it really large at the bottom right there, where it's been made visible at the bottom. TexasButterflyRanch.com, and you will vote for either ironweed or shrubby boneset. Shrubby boneset. It's just kind of my preference. I love shrubby boneset, but ironweed, I don't have that yet. So I can't say I would prefer it yet. But yeah, get onto the website and take a vote or have a say in the contest and see which pollinator plant of the year is going to make it. Okay. Good luck to both contestants. Show me. All right, let's see. Okay, one more announcement. This is the gallery viewing for Norma Jean Moore. So it's called Fourth Nature and Urban Garden, new work by Norma Jean Moore. It's going to be held at the Bill House Arts on Fredericksburg Road. It's way up at the top corner, way up there. Okay. But there is I believe a website on the bottom corner back down on the left. njmooresa@gmail.com if you have any questions, or there's also a normajeanmoore.com website and you can learn more information about this. Does anyone know anything more about this?
Local artist.
Okay.
It's an exhibit that she's put together. She has nature themes, mostly native plants in her art.
Okay.
Garden stewards, Centennial Garden at Woodlawn Park.
So what Talit was saying is that Norma Jean Moore is a local artist who does a lot of artwork with native plants, nature themes, and what was the last part you said?
She's one of the garden stewards.
One of the garden stewards at Centennial Gardens. Okay. Cool. Hopefully some of you will get to check that out. Sounds like would be a very lovely date night. Or date day, is it too? Okay, sorry. Lunch date. All right. Okay. So I'm sorry. I was telling Talit earlier that as a teacher, I'm used to staring at the screen, so I have got to train myself to stare at the laptop. But this is a slide to remind you of support our nice partners, Pollinatives and the Nectar Bar. And there is a beautiful poster here of the drought-tolerant native plants that are available at both of the nurseries, Pollinatives and the Nectar Bar. There we go. Okay, so I have a slide here that I will not be talking about. It will be Peter. He's going to do a little announcement here. He is definitely the expert.
Hello, everybody. I hope y'all remember me for last year. I did a presentation with Jane. And
Right here. He needs to be right here.
at the mic, at the mic, I'm coming in. So, once again, it's City Nature Challenge in April. I know it wasn't on the list yet, but eventually it will be. But we have created several ways that we could participate just like last year. And one of the participations, like Native Plant Society, they have their own being challenged by other civic, we call them civic group. And the civic groups are basically nature-based societies or groups. And then we also have a community group, which are normally non nature based, like bowling clubs or HOAs. Jerry entered his HOA, so we want more of them. So I'm here to talk about the y'all's Texan, right? Project, and that's the City Nature Challenge, and that's y'all are in it with six other chapters in our area. So we're the San Antonio metro area, which encompasses 12 counties, including Bear County, of course. And in those counties, we have a total of 7 chapters, and we're all combining together to challenge ourselves to go out there, explore nature, make observations, build community, like Diane was saying, and also just provide data to science. And that's basically the bottom line. Giving data to science is the reason for the season of City Nature Challenge. It does involve, last year was 690 cities across the globe. So this is really a global biodiversity project. It's just not a local project. So we want to be in touch. Always think globally, but act locally. That's my motto. But it is happening, as you see. Last year, you could see Claire and Pam were accepted the awards. Y'all did place. We do have a celebration at the end of the City Nature Challenge, and y'all are welcome to come. But I'm going to pass this around. There's the QR code. We are updating the Native Plant Society website in San Antonio. It should be updated, hopefully soon. But if you forget, go there first, or we do have our own website, cnc-sa.org. We'll give you all the flavors you could participate in, from single to team. And team tournament actually was started by Jerry, his idea, where you get teams of 6. We also have corporation. I hope some of the corporations come back or workplaces come back. We also have community. High schools are competing against each other. And I think we're up to 18 high schools are in it in the fray. So we do want to be the world champions next year, or this year. That's right, coming. This year we were second last year, and then first in the nation. So I applaud y'all, because it's people like you that participate that helps us show off San Antonio and the San Antonio metro area. With that, I turn it back to you. Thank you.
Okay, so then now we're almost at ready for our presenter, but let me also remind you that we have a meeting February the 24th, and the presentation will be from the Heart of Texas Conservancy. Executive Director Ben Eldridge will be speaking about preserving natural infrastructure in the Texas Hill Country. So that sounds like a beautiful, beautiful presentation. I'm excited for that one in February. And then now, Krystie Miner will be our presenter. She is a wonderful steward of the Bracken Cave. And So let's welcome Krystie Miner. Welcome.
Hi everyone. Thanks for being patient. Again, my name is Krystie. I work for Bat Conservation International. I've worked with them for about 3 years now, and I've been working with bats for over 10 years now. So I really love bats. I'm learning to really love plants. I've been in Texas for about 3 years, so I'm still learning my plants, but really excited to be here and talk. I would like to give you all kind of an overview, kind of like a bat basics. So I think it's important to be on the same page about what bats are and some of the basic information about them. And then I'll get a little more into the local bats and local things going on. So first, what is bat? So bats are mammals. They are the only mammal capable of true sustained flight. And the scientific order that they come from is called Chiroptera. And in Latin, that translates to hand wing. And as you can see here, this right here is where their wing would be on a live bat. And those bones are the exact same bones that you and I have in our wrists, in our hands, knuckles, everything. Obviously, theirs are a little bit more elongated relative to body size. So this is how they fly with their hands. And one really cool thing that bats can do is they can actually move. They can move each of their 4 digits independently. So just like we can do this, they can do that also. They can't move their thumb very well, but this makes them really maneuverable in flight. So if you're ever looking at something flying around at dusk or dawn and you're not sure if it's a bat or a bird, pay close attention to how it's flying. They can turn and maneuver really, really well. Bats can also echolocate, as you might know. This is a really special sense that they have that they use to navigate and find food. And basically, they send out a really high-pitched or high-frequency sound wave that they emit from their throat. Some bats will emit the sound from their nose. But in the US, I think they all use their throats, just like I'm talking to you right now. But they send out a sound pulse into their environment, and that sound pulse hits something, and the echo of that sound bounces back, and the bats listen to that and can get information from it. So that's, of course, happening in milliseconds, but that is the primary way that most bats get around. And that's really, really good for us because we can actually use this information to study bats. So just to give you, I know there's a lot going on the screen here, but just paying attention to the actual sound waves. This is a recording from a high frequency microphone of bat echolocation. So on the y-axis is frequency. So that's the pitch or the frequency of the sound, and x-axis is just time. So prime human hearing, so that kids have with the child, their hearing maxes out at about 20 kilohertz. Bats can echolocate up to 200 kilohertz. And each species of bat has their own unique echolocation signature. So they all echolocate each species within a certain range and in a certain pattern. And that's really great for us because we can get a recording of a bat without even having to see the bat. We can know what species is flying around. Okay. Okay, sorry, I can't see the screen very well. So I can't talk about bats without first busting some myths about bats. The first one is that bats are rodents. This is false. Bats are mammals. But they're definitely not rodents, nor are they any way closely related to rodents. You've probably heard that bats are blind. This is a really common myth that is completely false. So all bats can see. Some bats can see really, really well, better than us. Some bats can see just a little bit. So it depends. But when they have light available to them, they do use their eyesight as well as echolocation and other senses. You probably heard that bats have rabies. This can be true. They're mammals, so they can get rabies just like we can, just like your dog can, or a wild mammal, other wild mammal can. but they're not all just flying around carrying rabies. And they don't actually get it more than any other animal. In fact, in the hill country, you're more likely to come across a rabid coyote or raccoon or skunk than you are a rabid bat. That said, you ever see a bat on the ground, don't do it. Same with any wild man. Okay, and then you might have heard that bats want to attack you, they want to suck your blood, they want to get in your hair. Hollywood has been great at perpetuating this. This is also false. So bats really are either afraid of you or they just don't care about you that much. So if there's a bat flying near you, it's probably because they're hunting a bug or something, but they really don't want to interact with you. So worldwide, there are 1,500 species of bats. Here in the US, we have 44 species. Okay, and then globally, the largest bat in the world is the golden crowned flying fox. This bat has a wingspan of almost 6 feet and can weigh almost 3 pounds. So very large bat. They live in the Philippines. And the good thing is that they mostly eat fruit. I think that helps people not be as afraid of them. So this one has, I think it's a banana in its mouth, but they really, really like figs better than anything else. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the bumblebee bat. You might also hear this bat called Kitty's hognose bat. And this is the world's smallest bat. It lives in Thailand and it eats really tiny insects. So all other species are in between these two as far as shape and size. All right, bats also live in a lot of different places. They can make themselves at home in trees, in caves, in bridges and other man-made structures like bat houses or culverts. So they're really adaptable. Certain species will live only in one type of place, and there are some species that'll kind of bounce back and forth. Bats also eat a lot of different things. So there are 5 main bat diets that we know of. So we have our frugivores. These are fruit-eating bats. These bats are mostly found in tropical regions where there's fresh fruit all year round. Then we have our nectivorous bats, which are bats that drink nectar. So just like a hummingbird or butterfly, they're bats that primarily feed on nectar. And then we have our insectivores. These are insect-eating bats. About 75% of all species are insect-eating bats. So this is the majority of their diets. And then we have carnivorous bats. So carnivorous bats are different from insect-eating bats in that they eat other animals besides insects. So down there in this corner, that's a pallid bat. We do have these in Texas. That bat is eating a scorpion. So this species is a scorpion specialist. They are not affected by the venom, which is very cool. But there are bats that eat things like fish and frogs and mice, sometimes even other bats, unfortunately. And last but not least, we have our sanguivores. These are blood-drinking bats or vampire bats. So out of all 1,500 species of bats, there are only 3 species that drink blood. All of those species live in Central and South America. 2 of the 3 species will only drink from birds. So only 1 species of bat will drink blood from mammals. That mammal is usually something like cattle or a deer. And they're actually very small bats. This right here is being held in someone's hand. So you can see they're a lot smaller than people think they are. When they're drinking blood from an animal, the animal usually doesn't even know that they're there. It's kind of like getting bit by a mosquito. You don't always feel them. So they're not quite as dangerous as people think. Okay, so what do they have to do with plants? Well, bats and plants are really important for each other. So there are a lot of ways that bats benefit plants, and there's a lot of ways that plants benefit bats. So they both kind of need each other, and I'll go over some of the reasons why. So the first one is pollination. So bats are really important for plants because they pollinate a lot of plants. They actually pollinate over 500 species of plants around the world. And a lot of those plants are really economically important ones that we eat or use every day, like you see here. Next time you have a margarita or a glass of mezcal, you can think of bat because they pollinate the agave that it comes from. And bats are really good pollinators. Here's a video. This is a bat pollinating an agave plant. And you'll notice that unlike a hummingbird, bats don't hover very well. So they kind of just have to repeatedly fly up to get the nectar. And here's kind of a close-up of what's going on when they reach the plant. So some of these bats have really great adaptations to get into these plants. And some species of plants like this agave have actually adapted to only open their flowers at night because bats are their primary pollinators. Okay, and so they're really effective pollinators for a couple reasons. One is that they fly really long distances and therefore can carry pollen farther than a lot of other pollinators. But also, if you go remember the video of the bat crashing into the plant, it's getting covered in pollen, and pollen sticks really well to fur. So they're able to get really high pollen loads on them before they start flying. All right, bats are also really important pest controllers. So a lot of the insectivorous bats that we have primarily feed on moths and beetles of species that would otherwise be decimating crops. So even though they're not pollinating these types of plants, they're still protecting them because they tend to eat. They tend to be the main predator of a lot of these pest species. So they're really important in that way as well. They're also seed dispersers. So when bats eat fruit, they're kind of like us. Sometimes, depending on the fruit, they'll eat the seeds. Sometimes they'll spit them out. And when they're flying, they'll be spitting out the seeds or pooping out the seeds. Those seeds land on the ground. And for the same reason as them being good pollinators, they're also really good seed dispersers. They fly really long distances. And they also, unlike a lot of other seed dispersers, they will fly over open areas, for example, areas that have been clear cut, which is really important in the area that they live in. Okay, and so plants are really important for bats as well because they provide habitat. So a lot of bats live in some type of plants. So they'll live in, you can see that Spanish bat and the Spanish moss. They'll live on the bark or the trunk of the tree, inside the tree. This one right here. Oh, actually, I have in case you can't see it, that's a little bat up there looking down the hollow of a tree. And then in other plants, like these Honduran white bats, they actually they tent the leaves to create that kind of A-frame cabin for themselves. So really important, they need plants for habitat. They also need plants for food. So of course our nectar bats and fruit bats directly need plants to provide food. So they eat the fruit and the nectar as their main diet. But also plants bring in insects. So in that way, they're kind of indirectly benefit from there being a lot of plants around as well. Okay, so who do we have here? In Texas, we have 32 species of bats. So remember in the US, there are 44 species total. In typical Texas fashion, we have more than any other state. Can't go any other way. This is the smallest species that we have, the tricolored bat. This is a full-grown tricolored bat that was found in a pulver in East Texas. They're, of course, insect-eating bats, and they are proposed to be listed as endangered, unfortunately, and I'll get into more of it in a little bit. This is one of our bigger species of bats, and I say one of because it depends on which way you're measuring the bat, could be the biggest. But the hoary bat is a common species throughout the United States and Texas. You're pretty unlikely to see one because they're, even though they're really big, they like to roost really, really high in trees and they're usually by themselves. So you don't typically see them flying around. All right, these are just a few other examples. The Mexican free-tailed bat is the most common bat in Texas. If you've been to Bracken Cave, Congress Avenue Bridge, Old Tunnel State Park, Frio Cave, or pretty much any bridge that you've seen bats on large numbers, you're looking at a Mexican free-tailed bat. They're also Texas's official state flying mammal, in case you didn't know we had one of those. Another example is the silver hair bat. These are pretty common throughout Texas. They live in smaller groups, sometimes by themselves or in groups of 5 to 10, and they really like to live in trees. So sometimes they'll be in tree cavities, but sometimes they can just kind of tuck themselves underneath a piece of bark and go hang out there. And then we have the spotted bat. This bat is not in this area. They're only found in West Texas, but I still like to talk about them because they're really cool bats. So they, you can't see their back, but they do have 3 black spots on their back. And this bat is also called the whispering bat, and that's because its echolocation is really, really low. The frequency is really, really low. So this is one of only a couple species of bat that if it flew over your head, you could actually hear it echolocally, which I think would be cool. Most bats in Texas are insectivorous. So all these bats, plus a lot more, eat insects. And I will go over the exception here in a minute. If you had to guess what the most common habitat or the most common place that bats live in Texas, does anyone have a guess as to what that would be? Trees. Good job. Trees. I heard lots of different things, but so there are probably more bats by number in caves and bridges, but most species actually use trees as their main habitat. So they really like palm trees. They'll live in live palm trees, but they also really like the dead palm fronds. And then again, cavities under bark. And then other bats like this hoary bat, they literally just hang among the leaves. Okay, so this is our exception to the insectivorous bat. This is a lesser long-nosed bat, and this is a nectar-drinking bat. So this is a pollinating bat. These guys, again, are found in West Texas, not in San Antonio, but they migrate really long distances. So they fly to and from Mexico every year through the Big Bend area into New Mexico and even Arizona sometimes. And they basically are following an agave corridor to get there. And these bats are pregnant when they do this, and they're feeding almost exclusively on the nectar of these agave plants. So that is our nectar species. It's debatable whether we have 1 or 2 other nectivorous species, but this is the only one that has a true, well-established population all the time. Okay, so hopefully you think bats are cool now, if you didn't already. But unfortunately, they're facing a lot of threats right now. Over 100 species of bats. These are old numbers, so this is probably a lot higher, but more than 100 for sure are endangered. Even more are critically endangered or vulnerable. And over 200 species are what we call data deficient, which just means we know they exist, but we don't know enough about them to know whether they have stable populations or not. And there are several reasons why they're declining. First and foremost, like a lot of wildlife, is just habitat loss. So urban expansion means less habitat, less places to forage, and less food in general for them. So that's the main reason why bats are declining. Some other things that are going on are wind turbines. So most people know that these kill a lot of birds, but they actually kill a lot of bats as well. They seem to affect our migrating species of bats. So the hoary bat, for example, is getting hit really, really hard by wind turbines. They seem to follow kind of the same wind pattern that the turbines are located on. There is some research being done to come up with things like deterrents for bats that seem to be impacted. And it seems to be mixed results, really successful for some species, not for others. And then we have this disease called white nose syndrome. So this is a disease caused by a fungus that I'll just call PD. This disease was first detected in the United States in about 2006 in New York State and has been spreading throughout the US ever since. So we do have it in Texas, unfortunately. And this fungus is a cold loving fungus. So it thrives in really like moist, cold habitats. And unfortunately, that's exactly where bats like to hibernate, places like caves. So this affects hibernating bats. So the good news is it doesn't really affect migrating species. But what it does is basically the fungus gets on their skin, usually starts on their nose, and it makes them really itchy and really irritable. And what that does is it wakes the bats up during hibernation repeatedly. So they're waking up and it's too cold for them to find food, so they starve to death. So the tricolor is one of the species being hit really hard here in Texas, among a couple others. Okay, and then other reasons for declines, just misinformation or lack of information, harmful myths that lead to persecution and even hunting in some regions. And all of this is worsened by bats having really slow reproduction. So most species of bats only have one baby or one pup per year. Some species have more, but one per year is just not enough to keep up with the rate that a lot of them are declining. All right, so now that we're depressed about that, there are things you can do. So there are some really easy things you can do to help bats, things that almost everyone can do. So I'll go over some of those. As far as habitat goes, you can put up a bat house. So bat houses got really popular within the last decade or so. They can be really good for bats. If you're thinking about putting up a bat house, I just ask that you be smart about it because a lot of people make bat houses who don't really know anything about bats. So there are a lot of bad bat houses out there. They need to be a certain size. They need to have a certain number of chambers. They need to be a certain color depending on what state you live in. There are special positions. They shouldn't be on trees because then predators can get to them. So there's a lot of rules, but they can be really effective as well. We do have info on our website if you're interested in bat houses. Also, a lot of bat houses that you can buy, especially the cheap ones, have kind of like a screen or mesh in the back, presumably for bats to have something to hang on to. The problem with that is, for one, if it's made out of a good wood like ash juniper, they don't need that. That's what they're used to hanging on to, is stuff like that. But also, bats are kind of like cats in that they will squeeze themselves behind anything they can. So bats will often find a way underneath that mesh and they will actually get trapped and can die in there. So if you get a bat house with mesh in it, just rip that mesh right out. And there's no such thing as a bat attractant. So if you Google it, you will find products you can buy. Do not buy them. Do not waste your money. There is no way to attract bats to a bat house. So you could have the perfect bat house in the perfect position and never get bats just because the bats kind of just have to stumble upon it and need a place to live. So again, I know people with really successful bat houses, but it's kind of hit or miss. So instead, I'd like to kind of pivot to talking about urbanization in terms of lawns. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but you know that most people live in urban or suburban areas, and a lot of people have lawns. And while lawns can look really nice, they don't do a lot for. So the answer to that, getting around that, is plant a back garden. So this is something that you may or may not have heard of. At the end of the day, if you have a native garden, you have a back garden. That's a really good, solid start. But if you want to make your garden more bat friendly, you can plant things that will be more attractive to bat food, basically. So flowers that are really fragrant, that bloom at night, that are kind of pale in color, and ones native plants that are known to be moth host plants. I'm going to provide some resources. I'm not going to talk too much about individual species because you all know way more about these species than I do. So, but I will give you resources in case you're interested in learning more. I've heard this is a really good book for moth host plants. We also have a gardening guide on our website, and I do have the QR code on the next slide. But this website has a list of Central Texas native plant species that are good for bat gardens. So if you're interested, batcon.org/garden. This is kind of a little mini cheat sheet. There are definitely more than this, but these are just some examples of plants that you can use here in Texas. Let me go up here for. And near that page, if you're interested in bat houses, you can navigate to the bat houses section from there as well. So any more phones up? The other thing you can do for bats is provide trees. So leave the trees up in your yard, dead or alive. Trees are really good bat habitat. They like to roost in the hollows of dead trees. Again, palms, especially in this area, are really great. In fact, if you have palm trees in your neighborhood or in your yard, try to go out there around dusk and you'll probably see bats coming out of them. But trees in general are also just really good for attracting insects. So good for bat food. Okay, a few other things that you can do. Leave your cats indoors. This is good for all wildlife, of course. People tend to know that cats eat a lot of birds, but to a cat, a bat is a nighttime bird. So it doesn't know the difference. They both taste good. So they definitely will eat bats, so leave your cats indoors. Reduce or eliminate your use of pesticides and herbicides. Those definitely get back into the systems of the bats from the insects that they eat. And this one can be a little bit counterintuitive, but turn your porch lights off at night. So I say counterintuitive because you have probably seen bats hunting at porch lights or street lamps, things like that. So some species of bats will do that. So you'll often see bats hunting the insects around. The problem is that you have one or two species that will do that, and it will push away any other species. And those species are usually the ones who need the food more than the urbanized species. So it's still better for many reasons to leave your lights off at night. And then this is really important in Texas, especially, is to provide a water source. So as you know, a lot of natural water sources dry up in the summer. Bats get some of their moisture from the food that they eat, but they do still need to actively drink water. Bats drink on the wing, so they don't perch, they don't land to drink water. So they can't really drink out of something like a bird bath. Instead, they need something kind of more elongated that they can swoop down and drink from. So a really good way to provide this is to put out something like a water trough and just keep it full of fresh water, especially in the evenings. And last but not least, you can always educate. Talk to people about bats and why they're important and how you can help them. And that goes a really, really long ways. And that's all I've got for you. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Who's curious about the moths? Is it only fly moths that they eat, or do they also eat caterpillars?
No,
They want to repeat the question for the
Sure. Yeah, so the question was, will bats eat caterpillars or just flying moths? Great question. They will typically only eat flying moths. So they don't directly take the caterpillars that are killing the plants, but they might eat the big juicy females carrying all the eggs. So that's a good question. Yes, Jim.
Yeah, Krystie, you said that the bats like palm trees a lot. Does that include the palmetto that doesn't get high at all, or?
That's a good question, and I don't know for sure the answer, but I would guess probably not because they do like to be up high. It's definitely possible, but they prefer higher roosts when they can. So most likely, yes.
The urban vets like the lives in Austin, where do they fly into the rural areas to feed, or do they feed actually close by, or is much known about that?
I don't know exactly where they go, but Mexican Freetail specifically can fly, they'll fly like a 60-mile radius every night. So they're most likely going into more rural, like agricultural type areas away from the city. But I don't know specifically where. But yeah. They're also just generalists. So if there's something flying in front of them, they'll probably eat it. But the large groups, they have to go further to have enough for everyone.
What is the interaction with birds and bats? I mean, do they interact at all, or like nighttime owls, let's say for example, are they, do they compete for habitat?
Yeah, so yeah, birds and bat interactions. Mostly their interactions are that birds will eat bats. So the things like hawks and owls will eat bats a lot. They might share, I don't think they would share habitat, not that I know of. They might share like the same tree hollow if they're not in it at the same time. I have seen like, yeah, I can't think of like an example where I've seen like one bridge where it has bats and swallows or something. So mostly, and they're on different schedules, so they don't interact a lot, but mostly they just, yeah, birds will eat them. So yes, good question.
We have a question from Zoom,
Sure.
and if you don't mind repeating it.
Yes, sorry. Got you everything.
Your water's be in a saucer on the ground, or is that too low and vulnerable for the bats?
Okay, that's a really good question. So the question was, can you put a water source in a saucer on the ground? I would say most likely not the best, because a saucer is probably not big enough, because they do need a really long stretch of water. And they would be, they will swoop low to the ground, kind of depends on the species, but most bats will like to be a little bit higher up. So it's better if that can be elevated.
Thank you for your presentation. If you happen to have a native plant garden in our residence, bats, so something to do at
Yeah.
night. Well, certainly you need night vision goggles.
Great question. So the question was, if you have a native garden with bat plants, how do you know if there are bats? So there are a couple different ways. You can just sit and watch. If you're really still in your little ways and you let your eyes kind of adapt, you might see them kind of swooping down. They will get, kind of depends on where the insects are, but they would get close to the plants potentially. Night vision works well. You can see bats with the night vision equipment. You can also buy the high frequency microphones to detect bats. Or an actual like bat detector that you put out there for a couple of weeks, and then you can kind of analyze it and see what bats came by. So yeah, those are the different ways that you could definitely should be able to see. All right, I don't know who was first. We'll start over here.
Going back to water, will they drink out of pools?
Yes. Sounds like some people have had this experience. So bats will drink out of pools. And we don't, I think there are people looking into the effects of like chlorine and stuff in their system. It's probably not good for them, but sometimes that's all they have. So yeah, if you have a pool, you probably, it sounds like people have experienced that. Yes, Jay.
Is there any correlation seen between drought and populations of bats?
Yes. We know that it can change population structures, or sometimes bats will have to fly farther to find food. And I think at times if it's, if it's drought for a long enough period, they could move, have to find a new roost. A lot of bats will go back to the same habitats. But of course, if there's no food, they might have to move. So it definitely can affect them a lot. That's okay. Thank you. Typically, no. Oh yeah, so the question was if you leave your light on, will it help bats? And the answer is usually no. So there could be a couple species of bats that will come towards, to eat the insects that are by the light, but it drives most species away. So it's always better to, and the species that will hunt at lights tend to be generalists who are good to kind of eat anywhere. So they're kind of the ones that don't necessarily need it as much.
So Krystie, do they eat wasps? Do bats eat wasps?
They could. I think in some instances they do if the timing aligns for the wasps to be outside. They'll eat a lot of different things. If they're hungry and there's something in front of them, they'll eat it.
Yes. We have another question from Zoom.
Sure.
Is there any white nose syndrome in your area affecting free tails?
Great question. So the question was, is there white nose syndrome in our area affecting free tails? So I kind of have two answers to that. Yes, there is white nose syndrome in this area, but no, it is not affecting free tails. And the reason for that is because free tails are largely migratory. So most of them leave for the winter. So they're not really able to be susceptible to that fungus. The bad thing is that they are exposed to it in a lot of areas and are probably spreading it. But yeah, they're not really affected by it. The bats that do stay over winter typically have enough food in this area. So they don't really do like a true hibernation where they fully slow their metabolism. So they're usually okay as far as that.
Obviously, bats use echolocation, but do they make any other sounds and we hear them making sounds?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, do bats make other sounds besides echolocation, and can we hear that? So yes, definitely. So they have a lot of bats are very, very social. So obviously depending on the species, but a lot of bats are really social and they definitely communicate with each other. If you know of a good bridge roost that you can walk under, you can hear them just chirping away at each other. So most of that type of communication is within our hearing range, just not the echolocation. So yeah, question. Yes.
Years ago, I heard about a study that said most of the time, at least with the Mexican free-tailed bats, the females have been impregnated where they spent the winter. And they're actually holding that fertilized egg until they find their spot, locate their cave, and know that it's safe, a good place to have babies, and then they actually somehow get impregnated and they have their babies. Has that research held up over time?
As far as I know, yes. So yeah, basically, yeah, the research showed that they can be impregnated, and then yeah, they don't develop until it's a certain time or anything like that. And it's actually pretty common in a lot of different bat species. Is they'll mate and then their pup doesn't start growing until they're in the right conditions or a certain amount of time has gone by. So a lot of them will be migrating, like the Mexican freetails will be migrating while pregnant. But yeah, as far as I know, I think it's with Mexican freetails, it's a little tricky because they're just everywhere. And so I think some of them do it that way and some of them don't. Because ones that stay here all year round don't necessarily need to. But it's definitely common with some bat species. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
What are the conservation challenges you're seeing at Bracken Cave and how are the populations doing there?
Yeah, great question.
Are there other?
Yeah, so the question was, what are the conservation challenges at Bracken Cave. So Bracken Cave has been pretty steady. But we have seen, there's no diseases or anything like that. The problem with populations like Bracken Cave is even though there are so many bats, the issue when you have that is if anything happens to that spot, it's going to be a really big deal. So honestly, I feel like the biggest conservation challenge is getting people to experience the bats and learn about the bats, but not put the bats or the cave in any harm. So that's just kind of access issues, and that's why it's privately owned and only by reservation. But as far as the population itself, we are also, I guess, honestly, the biggest challenge is actually getting accurate estimates consistently. Because we've had estimates done several times, and they're always very similar. But it would take a very dramatic drop in population for us to just notice that they're declining. So that's, I think, one of the biggest things, and we're talking to different people about, the technology is getting better and better about how to count animals like that. So we're trying to stay up on that. Yeah, good question.
So on your website, do you have information about where to place a bat house and
Yes.
location? Because
Yeah.
what I've heard is that bats can be up high because they don't take flight, they kind of drop in the flight.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so the question was about information about placing bat houses. We have all of that on our website. So batcon.org, we have a whole page dedicated to bat houses. It has videos and where to place them, where not to place them. And you're right, they do have to be up high because bats need that drop to be able to fly out. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Have you noticed that bats have changed their behavior and hibernation patterns over recent years? It's the last couple of decades to respond to different challenges, particularly climate change and whiteness.
Yeah, so the question in short was, have bats changed their hibernation and migration patterns? And yes, definitely they have. I don't know about every species, but I know at Bracken specifically, they're used to not be an overwintering population. And throughout about the past decade, more and more bats seem to be staying behind over the winter. And we're kind of, guessing that that's because of climate change. Maybe there's enough food for them that they can stay and they don't have to expend that energy to migrate. So definitely affects when the timing and the locations that bats might hibernate or migrate. For sure.
Okay, members, those are excellent questions. And I think Krystie will be here. I think Krystie will be here for just a little bit longer here after the meeting. Thank you so much. Okay, no questions for her. No questions for her after the meeting. But I think that is it for the whole meeting. Am I missing anything? No? Okay. So thank you so much for coming out tonight, braving the weather, and have a safe ride. Thank you very much. Please don't forget to sign up, volunteer for something, please, something. Thank you. Good night.